Hi, welcome to Chapter 2 where we learn about configurations of a network operating system. Network operating systems on top of routers and switches. So in this we're going to talk about the basics of the IOS, and we'll learn about the basics of configuration and addressing schemes, all of which we'll be looking deeper into in later chapters, but this will be enough of an introduction for us for now. So I'll step out of the way and move on. So the purpose of the IOS is very similar to that of a computer. In a computer, you have a keyboard and a monitor to see what's going on inside your machine, and that's how you interact with it. Routers and switches are computers as well, but they don't have the interface devices. So we have to substitute and use our computer's keyboard and monitor to sneak over and look inside what's happening inside the device. And we do that by using what's called terminal emulation software. Terminal emulation meaning our computer and mouse on our computer, monitor and mouse will be used to look inside. Generally not a mouse in the command line interface, but it is possible. Now, we do this accessing it through either Telnet or a console cable or SSH, which is a secure Ethernet based. So console cable is the blue cable that comes in a box with a switch or a router, and we would take that and plug it into the console cable on the back, and then we would use a terminal emulator like Teraterm in this example, and we could determine which way we're going to do it. PuTTY is another one. HyperTerminal was an old Windows program. So any of these terminal emulators are the software that allow your computer to communicate with a remote device. We set up the ports and we set up the communication speed, and then we can look into them. Now, a console cable we would plug into a communications port on the computer, and then the console cable on a switch or a router is the blue terminal cable in the back, and it's a special cable that allows out-of-the-box operation, because without an IP address configured, it's very hard to telnet in because you need an IP address as an addressing tool to find the port. So first things first, you go in with a console port, configure an IP address, and then come up and get going. There is, as you can see, there is a video about that in the curriculum. Once inside, you have the choice of, a user exec mode just lets you in to look around and see what's going on if you have permission. And if you also have greater permission, you can go into the privileged executive mode and make changes. And that will let you go into detailed routing, find out deeper information. And we'll see how modes work in just a few minutes. So, but when you go in and say the basic thing you want to do is go in and make a command to change the name. You can go into a switch and configure it and change the host name. You go into configuration mode, it creates another set of commands that will be available to you to change the way the router or the switch operate. The modes and commands are very similar between Cisco routers and switches. And here's what they look like. You get a prompt of just a greater than caret. And that if there's nothing behind it, it just means it's a user exec mode. That's the basic. So you have to enable to go into privilege mode, but you generally have to do that with a password. If there's no password set yet, you just hit enter and there you go. And to turn that off, you can disable it, and then exit takes you out again altogether. But that's how you get between modes. You enable and disable modes to get in. Now there's configuration mode, all kinds, router configuration, etc. So here we want to go into enable and configure an interface on a switch. Interface VLAN 1, exit and get out. That's all we're doing here, just to give you an idea of how it works. And then we can come back out, or Control Z or something to get you back out at the end, or typing the word end. So the basic iOS command structure is we have our prompt, and then we type our command, either show or ping or configure. And then we have the arguments where we take a space and then we have to put in what it is we want it to do. So in the top we have a switch and we're saying show what I want to see, and then what do I want to see? I want to see the IP protocols. And that argument will make the switch demonstrate what they are. If we're actively doing something, we do a ping, and then we give an IP address, and then we will ping or send a signal to. So when you see these command syntaxes, the boldface are the words you type in, and then the italics will be the arguments that you have to supply. So the command's in bold, and then the arguments are what you're telling it to do inside that command. And then the brackets and pipes have options that are available to it. And if you don't know what they all are, that's not a problem, because there's a help feature. And that is the question mark. You just begin a command, see, like CL, and if there's no other command that starts with CL and you put a space question mark, it'll tell you, here's the command you can do. So, okay, I've got clock, so clock set, and then the question mark tells me, oh no, you're not finished yet, you got to put in the time. So clock set time, oh yes, it also wants the day and the month. So there's a lab where you run through this process and you can see how the operating system wants to help you complete the commands you need to put in. So these help features, it also tells you if you've got an incomplete command, or if it's ambiguous and it doesn't know what it means, or if it's an invalid command. And if it's invalid, it will come up with this little caret here to tell you what it is. There are hotkey shortcuts that you can use on your keyboard. Ones you'll use probably the most are the down arrow and up arrow to scroll back and forth between. You can use these Control A and Z to move around, or the up and down arrow. And then the Control-Shift-6 interrupts a process like a ping or a trace route. If you have a ping or a trace route, it can take quite a bit of time for it to time out. So a Control-Shift-6 will take you out of it. And if you have a current command going and it's taking a long time, Control-C will take you out of it as well. So the basic device configuration, the most basic, is how to put on a host name, or to use